November 3rd, 1945, 15:30 hours. POW Camp 180, Lancashire, England. Gefreiter Bernhard Trautmann stood in goal on a muddy pitch behind the barbed wire, watching a British corporal line up for a penalty kick. Around them, 50 German prisoners and a dozen British guards had formed a rough circle, half cheering for the German team, half for the British team, the distinction mattering less with each passing minute of the match. The corporal, Stevens, a Manchester lad who'd served with the 8th Army in North Africa, took his run-up and struck the ball hard toward the upper left corner. Trautmann dove, fingers stretching, and somehow deflected it over the crossbar. The watching prisoners erupted in cheers. Stevens laughed, hands on his knees, breathing hard. "Bloody hell, Jerry, where'd you learn to do that?" Trautmann, 22 years old and 6 months into British captivity, responded in heavily accented English he'd been learning from guards. Luftwaffe training, fast reflexes. Stevens grinned and jogged back for the corner kick. "Right then, let's see if your reflexes can stop this one." 6 months earlier, Trautmann had been Fallschirmjäger, Luftwaffe paratrooper fighting Soviet forces on the Eastern Front. He'd expected death in combat or Soviet captivity, which amounted to the same thing. Instead, he'd been captured by British forces during Germany's final collapse and transported to England. The propaganda had been explicit for years. British would torture German prisoners, work them to death, exact revenge for bombing campaigns. Trautmann had braced for brutality, starvation, systematic cruelty. Instead, on his 3rd week in Camp 180, a British sergeant had appeared with a football and asked if anyone wanted to play. Trautmann, who'd been goalkeeper for his Luftwaffe unit's team, had volunteered tentatively. The sergeant had tossed him the ball, pointed to improvised goalposts made from wooden posts, and said simply, "Right, you're in goal. Let's see what you've got." Now, 3 months later, football matches happened twice weekly, sometimes prisoners against prisoners, sometimes mixed teams of guards and prisoners, sometimes British against Germans, with good-natured rivalry that had nothing to do with war and everything to do with who could kick a ball more accurately. Stevens's corner kick came in high. Trautmann positioned himself, judged the trajectory, and caught it cleanly. The whistle blew. Full time, match over, British team winning 3-2. Both sides shook hands, guards and prisoners alike, before dispersing for evening roll call and supper. As Trautmann walked back toward the barracks, Stevens fell into step beside him. "You're proper good, you know. Played professionally before the war?" "No, just for fun. In Hitler Youth, then Luftwaffe unit teams." "Shame to waste talent like that. When you get back to Germany, you should try for a real club." Trautmann looked at the British corporal, a man whose army had defeated Germany, who had every reason to hate German soldiers, who was instead offering career advice about football. The disconnect between expectation and reality remained profound even after months of experiencing it. "Maybe," Trautmann said quietly, "if anyone will have me." Stevens clapped him on the shoulder. "Course they will. You're a goalkeeper, mate. Everyone needs a good keeper." The matches. Camp 180's football program was typical of what developed across British POW camps. The pitch was rough, former farmland inside the wire, goals made from scavenged lumber, no proper markings except touchlines scratched in mud. Equipment was minimal. 2 footballs shared among 2,000 prisoners, no proper kit. Players wore work clothes or repaired Wehrmacht uniforms with insignia removed. Despite limitations, the matches were serious affairs. Teams formed based on barracks assignments. A camp league emerged with 8 teams playing round-robin schedule. Matches drew crowds of several hundred spectators, prisoners grateful for entertainment, guards curious about the competition. The British Guards initially watched from distance, but competitive instincts proved irresistible. Within weeks, guards were forming their own team to challenge prisoners. The first British versus German match in October 1945 drew over 1,000 spectators, every prisoner in camp who wasn't on work detail, plus off-duty guards. The match was competitive and physical. British team included several men who'd played semi-professionally before the war. German team featured former athletes and unit-level competitors. The standard was surprisingly high for improvised pitch with makeshift equipment. Sergeant William Hughes, who'd served in Normandy and lost friends to German forces, played centre-half for the British team. Years later, he recalled the experience. Strange thing, playing football against men who'd been trying to kill us months earlier. First few minutes were awkward. Nobody quite sure how hard to tackle, whether it was appropriate to compete seriously. Then someone made a good run, somebody else made a hard tackle, and suddenly it was just football. We wanted to win. They wanted to win. For 90 minutes, that's all that mattered. The Germans won that first match 2-1. The British team demanded a rematch the following week. The competitive rivalry continued for months, sometimes British winning, sometimes Germans. The score mattering intensely during matches and forgotten immediately afterward. More significantly, mixed teams began forming. Guards and prisoners playing together against other combined teams, the partnerships based on skill rather than nationality. Trautmann, recognized as the best goalkeeper in camp, played for whatever team needed a keeper. British forwards learned to work with German midfielders. Defensive lines formed with men who spoke different languages but understood football's universal communication. The unexpected policy. Britain's treatment of German POWs, including organized recreation and sports, stemmed from calculated policy that balanced security, intelligence gathering, and long-term strategic objectives. By autumn 1945, Britain held over 400,000 German prisoners in camps across England, Scotland, and Wales. The war in Europe had ended in May, but repatriation would take years due to logistics, security vetting, and Germany's destroyed infrastructure. The challenge was straightforward: how to manage hundreds of thousands of enemy soldiers for extended periods without creating security nightmares, while also preparing them to eventually return home as potential advocates for democratic values rather than embittered enemies nursing grievances. The solution was systematic. Treat prisoners according to Geneva Conventions, work them within legal parameters, maintain discipline firmly but fairly, and crucially, provide recreational opportunities that would maintain morale and demonstrate British civilization. POW Recreation Policy, 1945 to 1948, sports activities permitted in all camps holding 500-plus prisoners. Football most common, also volleyball, boxing, athletics. Equipment provided through Red Cross and camp supplies. Matches organized by prisoner representatives with guard supervision. Intercamp competitions arranged quarterly. Guards permitted to participate in mixed teams at commander's discretion. Local civilian teams occasionally invited to play against prisoner teams. No betting allowed. Matches purely recreational. This wasn't sentiment. It was calculated policy with multiple objectives. Well-occupied prisoners caused fewer discipline problems. Recreational activities provided intelligence opportunities as guards observed prisoner interactions and leadership patterns. Sports demonstrated British fairness in ways that would influence prisoners' post-war attitudes. And frankly, guards enjoyed the matches too. Brief respites from monotonous duty, watching men behind wire. The football matches became defining feature of many camps. Prisoners organized leagues, kept statistics, formed rival teams. Guards joined games during off-duty hours. The competition was genuine. Neither side held back, and matches could be intensely contested, but the enmity was sporting rather than ideological. Trautmann's story. Bernhard Bert. Trautmann's journey from captured paratrooper to British football legend exemplified how sports bridged wartime divisions. Born in Bremen in 1923, Trautmann had been drafted into Luftwaffe in 1941. He'd served as paratrooper on Eastern Front. Brutal combat that left him decorated for bravery and deeply disillusioned with Nazi ideology. Captured in final weeks of war, he'd expected Soviet captivity and near-certain death. Being taken by British forces instead probably saved his life. During captivity, football provided purpose and distraction. Trautmann wasn't just good, he was exceptional. His reflexes, courage and positioning made him stand out, even on crude prison pitch. Guards who'd played competitively recognized genuine talent. When war ended and repatriation began, Trautmann faced choice: return to shattered Germany, where prospects were grim, or remain in Britain, where he'd been treated fairly and discovered unexpected opportunities. He chose to stay. Released from POW status in 1948, he found work in Lancashire and began playing for local non-league teams. His goalkeeping drew attention. By 1949, Manchester City, then in second division, offered him contract. The reaction was immediate and hostile. Manchester had been bombed heavily during the Blitz. Thousands of locals had lost family members to German forces. Now their football club was signing a former German paratrooper. Protests erupted. 20,000 people signed petitions demanding the signing be cancelled. Rabbi Alexander Altman, whose family had been murdered in Holocaust, received death threats for supporting Trautmann's right to play. But city manager stood firm. "He's a footballer, a bloody good one. Give him a chance." Trautmann received his chance. Initially, crowds booed when he took the field. Hostile chants greeted every touch. Some fans refused to attend matches while the German played. Then, they watched him play. Week after week, Trautmann demonstrated extraordinary goalkeeping, diving saves, commanding presence, fearless challenges. His performances spoke louder than his nationality. The booing diminished, then stopped. Respect replaced hostility. The transformation culminated in 1956 FA Cup final. Manchester City versus Birmingham. 70 minutes in, Trautmann collided with Birmingham forward, suffering what would later be diagnosed as broken neck vertebra. He played on, 15 minutes of normal time, plus extra time, making crucial saves while dizzy and in agonizing pain. City won 3-1. Trautmann collected his winner's medal, collapsed afterward, spent weeks in hospital. The courage, playing with broken neck to help his team win England's most prestigious domestic trophy, transformed him from the German goalkeeper to Bert, our keeper. The man who'd arrived as enemy prisoner had become British sporting hero. The broader pattern. Trautmann's story was exceptional in its public prominence, but the pattern of German POWs building lives in Britain was common. German POWs remaining in Britain, 1945–1950. Prisoners who volunteered to stay as civilian workers, approximately 25,000. Those who eventually settled permanently, approximately 4,000. Marriages to British women, over 1,000 documented. Occupations, agriculture, 40%. Construction, 25%. Manufacturing, 20%. Services, 15%. Integration rate, 85% reported positive experiences. Deportations for criminal activity, less than 100. Many had experienced treatment during captivity that contradicted propaganda about British brutality. The football matches, while seemingly trivial, had demonstrated British character more effectively than any words. Guards who played football with prisoners, who competed fairly, who shook hands after matches. These men represented civilization that prisoners hadn't expected but came to respect. The sports provided bridge across ideological and national divisions. Shared love of football transcended politics. A well-placed pass, a brilliant save, a hard-fought goal. These created common ground where nothing else could. For 90 minutes, enemies became teammates. That temporary transformation often created lasting friendships. Joseph Weber, captured in Normandy and held at camp in Yorkshire, played midfielder for mixed teams throughout 1945-46. He remained in Britain after release, married Yorkshirewoman, and worked as mechanic for 40 years. In 1990 interview, he reflected, "The football matches showed us British weren't monsters propaganda described. They were men who loved same game we did. They competed hard but fairly. After matches, we'd talk about tactics, about famous players, about anything except the war. Those conversations, enemy soldiers discussing football like it mattered more than politics, showed me propaganda had lied about everything. If British character was different than we'd been told, then maybe entire Nazi ideology was false. The football helped me see that." The strategic success. Britain's humane treatment of POWs, including recreational opportunities, served strategic objectives that extended beyond camp management. When German POWs were repatriated, they returned home with stories that contradicted both Nazi propaganda and Soviet treatment of prisoners. They'd experienced fairness, adequate food, medical care, and recreational opportunities. They'd been worked hard, but not worked to death. They'd been treated as defeated enemies, deserving of correct treatment, rather than as subhuman criminals deserving of revenge. These testimonies influenced post-war German attitudes toward Britain and democracy. Men who'd fought for Nazi regime but been treated fairly by British forces often became advocates for democratic reconstruction. Their experiences provided counterweight to Soviet propaganda and helped orient Western Germany toward democratic values. The football matches, while seeming frivolous, contributed significantly to this transformation. Sports provided positive interactions between guards and prisoners, demonstrated British fairness in concrete way, and created memories that tempered bitterness. Former prisoners might resent defeat and captivity, but they couldn't maintain hatred toward guards who'd played football with them fairly and shaken hands afterward. The reconciliation. By late 1940s, as repatriation concluded, unexpected phenomenon emerged: correspondence between former guards and former prisoners. Friendships formed during camp football matches continued through letters. British guards wrote to German prisoners they'd played alongside, asking about their family's recovery, offering assistance if needed. German ex-prisoners wrote back describing reconstruction efforts, expressing gratitude for fair treatment, sometimes sending photographs of rebuilding progress. Some relationships deepened into genuine friendships. Guards visited former prisoners in Germany. Ex-prisoners returned to Britain to visit guards who'd become pen pals. Football remained common bond. They'd exchange news about their local teams, debate tactics, argue about famous players. The reconciliation extended to organized reunions. In 1952, Camp 180 held reunion at Lancashire Pub. 15 former prisoners who'd settled in Britain, 20 guards who'd served at camp, and various family members. They spent the afternoon reminiscing about camp life, laughing about old football matches, marveling at how former enemies had become friends. Similar reunions occurred across Britain through 1950s and 60s. The pattern held: men who'd been enemies during war, who'd guarded or been guarded behind wire, who'd faced each other across ideological divides. They'd found common ground through sport and maintained connection through shared humanity that transcended politics. Sergeant Hughes, who'd played centre-half against German teams at Camp 180, maintained correspondence with 3 former prisoners for over 30 years. In 1978, he visited Munich and met them for reunion match. Men in their 50s playing casual football like they had 3 decades earlier, though with less pace and more laughter. We didn't forget we'd been enemies, Hughes reflected, but we also remembered we'd been teammates, even if briefly. The football matches showed us we had more in common than we'd been taught to believe. That recognition, that enemies could compete fairly and respect each other, that was worth maintaining. So we did. The legacy. Bert Trautmann played for Manchester City until 1964, 545 appearances, regarded as one of the finest goalkeepers in English football history. He remained in Britain until his death in 2013, having spent 65 years in the country that had captured him. His funeral drew thousands, former teammates, rival players who'd competed against him, Manchester citizens who'd watched him play, German officials recognizing his role in post-war reconciliation. The service celebrated extraordinary life, from Luftwaffe paratrooper to POW to football legend to symbol of British-German friendship. The bishop's eulogy captured what Trautmann represented. Bert came to this country as enemy soldier. He left this life as beloved friend. That transformation, from prisoner of war to British sporting hero, shows what's possible when we choose understanding over hatred, when we recognize shared humanity transcends temporary enmities, when we give former enemies chance to prove themselves through deeds rather than condemning them for pasts they cannot change. The broader legacy extended beyond Trautmann's story. British treatment of German POWs, including seemingly trivial policy of allowing football matches, contributed to successful reconstruction of post-war Germany and establishment of lasting British-German friendship. The football matches demonstrated principle more effectively than any propaganda, that civilization means maintaining standards even toward defeated enemies, that sports can bridge divides politics cannot cross, that treating people fairly creates better outcomes than nursing grievances. The final match. Lancashire, October 1995. 50th anniversary reunion at site of former Camp 180. The camp was long gone. Demolished in 1948, land returned to farming. But gathering assembled anyway. 12 former prisoners who'd been held there, 8 former guards who'd served there, numerous family members representing those who'd passed. They held memorial service at small plaque marking camp's former location. Then, inevitably, someone produced a football. "Right then," said an elderly German man who'd been Camp 180's best striker in 1945. "Fancy a rematch?" They played. Men in their 70s, moving slowly, breathing hard, laughing constantly. The football rolled across the same muddy Lancashire ground where they'd competed 50 years earlier. Some played for British team, some for German team. The division arbitrary and cheerful. No spectators this time except family members applauding politely. No trophy at stake. No particular importance to outcome. Just old men kicking ball around field where they'd been enemies and guards and prisoners and briefly teammates. Bert Trautmann attended. Though he didn't play, his neck injury from 1956 Cup final had left lasting limitations. He stood with other spectators, watching former prisoners and guards play together, remembering when football had first shown him that British weren't monsters propaganda had described. "The matches saved us," he said quietly to a reporter covering reunion. not just from boredom of captivity, but from hatred that could have poisoned everything. When British guards played football with us fairly, when they competed hard but shook hands afterward, when they treated us like men rather than criminals, they showed us what civilization actually meant. That lesson stuck. All of us here learned it. Many thousands more learned it in camps across Britain. That education, delivered through simple game on muddy pitches, it helped build peace that's lasted 50 years. The match ended with no one certain of the score. Both teams declared victory. Everyone retired to local pub for beers and reminiscence. The afternoon passed in laughter and stories. Old enemies who'd become old friends, sharing memories of time when football had been bridge across war's divisions. Enemies had become players. Players had become men. Men had become friends. All because British guards had brought out footballs and invited prisoners to play, treating competition fairly, shaking hands afterward, demonstrating through sport what democracy and civilization actually meant. The ball had rolled across muddy Lancashire pitch for 50 years, carrying with it memory of time when simple game had shown what real strength looked like. Not brutality toward defeated enemies, but fairness that transformed them into advocates for values that had defeated them. German POWs had expected punishment. British guards had offered football. In that choice lay everything that mattered about why some nations build lasting peace, while others nurse endless grievances. The understanding that treating former enemies with dignity creates better future than treating them with deserved cruelty ever could.